The Valkyrie warships came out of the darkness like a swarm of angry insects. There were 300 of them, each one painted in the blood-red colors of the Valkyrie Dominion. They surrounded the small planet called Kethera Prime and blocked out the light of the distant sun. High Commander Zyrith stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the blue and green world below. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he studied the planet. It was a beautiful world. Soon it will belong to his people. What do we know about this colony? He asked his officers. A young officer stepped forward with a data tablet. Commander, the human settlement has been here for 12 years. Population is approximately 50,000. They have 6 patrol ships for defense and a ground militia of about 2,000 soldiers. Their main activities are farming and scientific research. Zyrith made a sound that was something like a laugh. 50,000 farmers against 300 warships. This will not take long. The Valkyrie Dominion had conquered many worlds. They had defeated 12 different species and taken control of 4 star systems. The humans were new to space travel. They had only a handful of colonies scattered across the stars. Zyrith had studied their military and found them weak. Their ships were small. Their weapons were primitive. They were no threat to the mighty Valkyrie. Open a channel to the colony, Zyrith commanded. The communication screen flickered to life. A human female appeared on the display. She had brown hair and tired eyes, but her voice was steady when she spoke. I am Governor Catherine Price of Kethera Prime. Why have you surrounded our world? Zyrith leaned forward in his command chair. Governor, I am High Commander Zyrith of the Valkyrie Dominion. Your colony now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately, or we will destroy you. Catherine Price did not look afraid. This surprised Zyrith. Most species showed fear when they saw his fleet. We are a peaceful colony, Catherine said. We have done nothing to threaten your people. Why are you attacking us? Because we can, Zyrith replied. Because your world has resources we want. Because your species is weak and you cannot stop us. These are the only reasons that matter in this galaxy. Catherine was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke again. I must refuse your demand. We will not surrender our homes to invaders. Zyrith felt a flash of anger. How dare this creature refuse him? You have 6 small ships and 2,000 soldiers. I have 300 warships and 50,000 warriors. Your resistance is meaningless. Perhaps, Catherine said. But we will resist anyway. That is what humans do. She ended the transmission. Zyrith turned to his weapons officer. Begin the bombardment. Show them what happens to those who defy the Dominion. The first missiles launched from the Valkyrie ships. They streaked down through the atmosphere and struck the colony below. Buildings exploded. Fire spread across the landscape. The 6 human patrol ships rose to meet the attack, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Within minutes, 3 of them were destroyed. The remaining 3 retreated behind the planet. On the surface, the humans ran for the underground bunkers that had been built for emergencies. Governor Catherine Price stood at the entrance to the main shelter, directing people inside. Children were crying. Parents were carrying whatever they could save from their homes. Keep moving, Catherine called out. Everyone get underground. We have supplies for months. We just need to hold on. A young man ran up to her. His name was Daniel Park, and he was the colony's chief engineer. Governor, the communication tower is still standing. I can boost our signal and send a distress call to Earth. Do it, Catherine said. Tell them everything. Tell them we need help. Daniel ran toward the tower as another wave of missiles struck the colony. The ground shook beneath his feet. He climbed the ladder to the transmission room and began working on the equipment. His hands were shaking, but he forced himself to focus. The distress signal went out into space. traveling at the speed of light toward Earth. It would take time to reach human territory. Daniel did not know if help would come. He only knew that he had to try. The bombardment continued for 3 days. The Valkyrie ships took turns firing at the colony. They destroyed the farms, the laboratories, the homes that the colonists had built with their own hands. But they could not reach the people hiding in the underground bunkers. The shelters had been built deep into the rock, and even Valkyrie weapons could not penetrate that far. High Commander Xyrith grew frustrated. He had expected the humans to surrender after the first day. Instead, they continued to resist. Governor Catherine Price broadcast messages of hope to her people. She told them that Earth had received their signal. She told them that reinforcements were coming. "She's lying to them," Xyrith said to his officers. "Human fleets are too far away. No help can reach them in time." His tactical officer nodded in agreement. "Our intelligence says the nearest human military force is at least 3 months away. By then, we will have taken the colony and moved on. Then we will proceed to ground invasion," Xyrith decided. "Send the landing ships. We will dig these creatures out of their holes." The Valkyrie dropships descended through the smoke-filled sky. They landed in the ruins of the colony and released thousands of soldiers. The Valkyrie warriors were tall and strong, with thick scales covering their bodies. They carried plasma rifles and energy blades. They had never lost a ground battle. The human militia met them in the tunnels beneath the surface. The fighting was fierce. Humans died by the dozens, but they made the Valkyrie pay for every meter of ground. They set traps. They collapsed tunnels. They fought with a desperation that Xyrith had never seen before. Why do they fight so hard? He wondered aloud. They must know they cannot win. His adjutant, a thin Valkyrie named Korath, offered an answer. "Humans are known for their stubbornness, Commander. They do not accept defeat easily. It is a weakness in their psychology, a weakness that will cost them their lives," Xyrith replied. On the 4th day, Governor Catherine Price made one final broadcast. Her voice was calm despite the chaos around her. "To the Valkyrie fleet, you have made a terrible mistake. Earth Command has received our message. The 7th Fleet is being mobilized. Reinforcements are coming." Xyrith heard the message and dismissed it as desperate lies. He could not have been more wrong. Across the vast emptiness of space, the message had reached Earth, and now, in the depths of a classified facility, something was waking up. Something that the galaxy had never seen. Something that would change everything. The reinforcements were coming, but they were not the kind of reinforcements that anyone expected. They were the monsters that humanity had created for the darkest of days, and the darkest of days had finally arrived. The message from Kethra Prime arrived at Earth Command on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Christopher Hayes was drinking his coffee when the alert came through. He set down his cup and read the report twice. A Valkyrie fleet of 300 ships had surrounded a human colony. 50,000 civilians were trapped. The colony's defenses were almost gone. Christopher walked to the window of his office and looked out at the city below. Earth was peaceful now. The old wars were over. Humanity had reached for the stars and found new homes among distant planets. Most people believed that the future would be one of peace and cooperation with other species. Christopher knew better. He pressed a button on his desk. "Get me Lieutenant Nathan Cole, immediately." Nathan arrived within minutes. He was a young officer with sharp eyes and a quick mind. He had been Christopher's aide for 3 years and knew many of Earth's secrets. But not all of them. "Sir, I've seen the report from Kethra Prime," Nathan said. "Our nearest fleet is at least 2 months away. There's nothing we can do." Christopher shook his head slowly. "There is something we can do, but you're not going to like it." He handed Nathan a data chip. Nathan plugged it into his tablet and read the information on the screen. His face went white. "Sir, this is Project Prometheus," Christopher said. "It's real. It's been real for 200 years. Nathan sat down heavily in a chair. The data on his screen described something that he had always believed was just a rumor. Enhanced soldiers, created through genetic modification and cybernetic technology. Weapons of human flesh and metal. Warriors who felt no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. They had been kept in cryogenic sleep, waiting for a day when they would be needed. 10,000 of them, Nathan whispered. We've been hiding 10,000 super soldiers. The galaxy thinks we're weak, Christopher said. They think we're peaceful explorers who can barely defend ourselves. We let them think that. It was safer that way. But the truth is different. He walked back to his desk and pulled up a holographic display. It showed a facility hidden on Titan, one of Saturn's moons. The facility was enormous, built deep underground where no satellite could detect it. Humanity learned a long time ago that the universe is not a kind place, Christopher continued. We hoped we would never have to use what we created. But hope is not a strategy. Nathan found his voice again. Sir, the Council hasn't authorized this. If we wake them up without permission, I don't have time for Council debates, Christopher interrupted. 50,000 of our people are dying right now. Children are hiding in bunkers while alien soldiers hunt them. I will not let that continue. He pressed another button on his desk. A communication channel open to Titan. Admiral Diana Vance appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She had been commanding the Prometheus facility for 15 years. Before that, she had led special operations missions that were still classified. Admiral Hayes, Diana said. I assume this is about Kethra Prime. It is. I'm authorizing a full deployment. Diana nodded without hesitation. We've been monitoring the situation. My people can be ready to launch in 6 hours. Make it 4, Christopher said. And Diana. Show no mercy. The channel closed. On Titan, Admiral Diana Vance walked through the corridors of the Prometheus facility. The walls were lined with cryogenic pods, each one containing a sleeping soldier. Frost covered the glass windows. Inside each pod, a human form lay still as death, but they were not dead. They were waiting. Diana stopped at the command center and entered her authorization codes. Lights began to flicker throughout the facility. Heating systems activated. The temperature in the cryogenic chambers began to rise. Beginning wake sequence, a technician reported. Pod systems are responding. Vital signs are stabilizing. Diana watched the monitors as her soldiers came back to life. Their hearts began to beat faster. Their brains showed activity. Their eyes opened. The first pod to complete the wake cycle contained Commander Ryan Torres. He was the leader of the Prometheus soldiers, the most enhanced and the most dangerous of them all. He stood 7 feet tall. His body was a perfect blend of muscle and machine. His eyes were gray and empty of emotion. The pod door opened and Ryan stepped out. He looked around the chamber, taking in his surroundings. Then he turned to Admiral Vance. How long was I asleep? He asked. His voice was flat and mechanical. 12 years since the last training cycle. What's the mission? Diana handed him a data tablet. Ryan read the information about Kethra Prime. His expression did not change. He felt no anger at what the Valkyrie had done. He felt no sadness for the colonists who had died. He simply processed the information and began planning. 300 enemy ships, Ryan said. Ground forces already deployed. Civilians in underground bunkers. Timeline? The colony will fall in 6 days if we don't intervene. We'll need 3 days. Maybe less. Diana nodded. Your transport is being prepared. The Shadow Fleet will take you to Kethra. Ryan looked up from the tablet. Shadow Fleet? You didn't think we'd send you in cargo ships, did you? Diana allowed herself a small smile. While you've been sleeping, we've been building 20 dreadnoughts, Commander. The most powerful warships ever constructed. They've been waiting for you. All around the facility, other pods were opening. Soldiers were waking up. They moved with perfect coordination, gathering their equipment and preparing for deployment. There was no confusion, no questions. They had been trained for this. They were ready. Ryan Torres walked among his soldiers and gave them their orders. They listened in silence. None of them showed fear. None of them showed excitement. They were weapons, and weapons did not feel. Within 4 hours, 10,000 soldiers stood ready for war. Diana. Vance addressed them from a platform above the main assembly hall. You were created for a single purpose: to protect humanity when no one else can. Today, that purpose is fulfilled. 50,000 of our people need you. The enemy is strong. The enemy is many. But the enemy does not know what they are facing. She paused and looked at the rows of enhanced soldiers before her. Show them what humanity is capable of. Show them why they should never have touched our people. Show them why the darkness fears us. The soldiers said nothing. They did not need to. Their silence was answer enough. Transport ships carried them to the waiting dreadnoughts. The massive warships powered up their engines. Navigation systems calculated the jump to Kethra Prime. Commander. Ryan Torres stood on the bridge of the lead dreadnought and watched the stars streak past as they entered. Faster than light travel. The monsters were awake. And they were coming. The Shadow Fleet moved through space like ghosts in the night. 20 dreadnoughts traveled through dimensions that official human science claimed were impossible. The ships were painted black, darker than the void around them. They absorbed light instead of reflecting it. From a distance, they were invisible. Up close, they were terrifying. Captain Scott Morrison stood on the bridge of the lead dreadnought. A ship called the Silence of Terra. He had served in the human navy for 30 years before being recruited into black operations. He had seen many things, but nothing had prepared him for commanding this vessel. The Silence of Terra was 5 kilometers long. It carried weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. Its crew had been selected for one quality above all others. They were willing to do whatever was necessary to protect humanity. No questions. No hesitation. No regret. Status report. Scott called out. His first officer, a woman named Linda Ross, checked their displays. All ships maintaining formation. Drive systems operating at full capacity. We will reach Kethra Prime in 32 hours. And our passengers? Linda glanced toward the lower decks. The Prometheus soldiers are in the combat base. They're reviewing tactical data and preparing their equipment. Scott nodded. He'd met Commander Ryan Torres briefly when the soldiers came aboard. The man was not quite human anymore. His eyes were empty of warmth. His movements were too precise, too mechanical. He was a weapon in human form, created for a single terrible purpose. What do we know about the Valkyrie fleet? Scott asked. Another officer pulled up the data on the main screen. 300 warships of various classes. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. Their flagship is the Crimson Victory, commanded by High Commander Zereth. They've been zeking the colony for 5 days now. Ground situation? Valkyrie forces have breached the outer bunkers. The colonists have retreated to the deep shelters. The human militia is fighting a defensive action, but they're running out of ammunition and supplies. Scott looked at the display showing Kethra Prime, a small blue dot surrounded by 300 red markers. The numbers were overwhelming. Any reasonable military commander would consider this situation hopeless, but the Shadow Fleet was not reasonable. It was designed for situations exactly like this. Meanwhile, on Cathera Prime, the situation was getting worse by the hour. Governor Catherine Price stood in the command center deep underground. The lights flickered as another explosion shook the tunnel above them. Dust fell from the ceiling. Children cried in the neighboring shelters. "How many did we lose?" she asked. Major Kevin Wright, the commander of the militia, checked his tablet with shaking hands. 47 dead in the last attack. We have maybe 800 fighters left. Ammunition for 2 more days, if we're careful. Catherine closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were filled with determination. "We hold. Earth received our message. Help is coming. Governor, with respect, no human fleet can reach us in time. We both know that. Then we hold until we can't hold anymore. That's what we do." Kevin wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her that hope was foolish, that they were all going to die. But he saw the look in her eyes and kept his mouth shut. If the governor wanted to believe in miracles, he would let her dot in orbit. High Commander Zurith was growing impatient. 5 days, he growled at his officers. 5 days, and we still haven't taken a colony defended by farmers. His adjutant Korath bowed his head. "The humans have proven more resourceful than expected, Commander. Their bunkers are deep. Their militia fights with great determination. Determination means nothing against superior firepower. Send more troops? I want those tunnels cleared by tomorrow." "Yes, Commander." Korath left to deliver the orders. Zyrith remained on his bridge, staring at the planet below. He had conquered 12 species. None of them had resisted like this. There was something wrong about these humans. Something that made him uneasy. He pushed the feeling aside. It was just superstition. The humans were weak. They would fall like all the others. Across the galaxy, messages were spreading. Other alien species had noticed the Velkari attack on Cathera Prime. The Galactic Council debated what to do. Most members argued for non-intervention. The humans were newcomers. They had few allies. Let the Velkari have their colony. It was not worth starting a war over. Only one ambassador spoke in favor of the humans. "You are making a mistake," said Ambassador Thelon of the Mori people. The Mori were an ancient species, one of the oldest in the galaxy. They had seen many civilizations rise and fall. "The humans are not what they appear to be." "What do you mean?" asked the council chairman. Thelon's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "We have studied the humans for many years. Their history is filled with violence. They have fought wars of terrible destruction against each other. They have created weapons that could end all life on their world. Yet they survived. They united. They reached for the stars. So they are violent," another ambassador said. "That is not unusual. You do not understand," Thelon replied. "The humans learn to hide their violence. They present themselves as peaceful, as cooperative. But underneath that mask, they are predators. The most dangerous kind of predators. The kind that knows how to wait." The council dismissed his warnings. The Mori were known for their strange beliefs, but Thelon knew he was right. He had seen the records from ancient times, when the Mori had observed Earth from afar. He had seen what humans did to each other in their wars. He had seen the weapons they built. The nuclear bombs. The biological agents. The machines of death. If the Velkari pushed the humans too far, they would learn what Thelon already knew. Humanity was never weak. They were just hiding. The Shadow Fleet continued its journey through the void. In the combat base, Commander Ryan Torres addressed his soldiers. "The enemy has 300 ships and 50,000 ground troops. We have 20 ships and 10,000 soldiers. On paper, we are outnumbered." He paused and looked at the rows of enhanced warriors before him. "But we are not on paper. We are Prometheus. We were made for this. The enemy thinks they are hunting civilians. They think they are fighting farmers and scientists. They are wrong. Ryan held up a tactical display showing the Valkyrie fleet. When we arrive, the fleet will engage the enemy ships. You will deploy to the surface and eliminate all hostile forces. No prisoners. No survivors. The enemy must learn what happens when they attack our people. One soldier raised a hand. Sir, what about the civilian population? Protect them at all costs. They are the reason we exist. They are the reason we were created. When they see us, they may be afraid. That is acceptable. Fear is a small price to pay for survival. Ryan lowered the display. Rest now. Prepare your minds and your bodies. In 30 hours, we go to war. The soldiers returned to their stations in silence. They did not talk among themselves. They did not joke or complain. They simply prepared. On the bridge, Captain Scott Morrison received a message from Admiral Hayes back on Earth. You have full authorization to engage, the message said. Use whatever force is necessary. Leave no doubt in the minds of the enemy. Make them understand what they have awakened. Scott read the message 3 times. Then he deleted it. He looked out at the stars streaming past and thought about what was coming. In a few hours, 300 Valkyrie ships would face the weapons of the Shadow Fleet. Thousands of enemy soldiers would face the fury of Prometheus. He almost felt sorry for them, almost. The Shadow Fleet emerged from slipspace at the edge of the Kethra system. One moment there was nothing. The next moment, 20 massive ships appeared out of empty space. They hung in the darkness like predators waiting to strike. On the Valkyrie flagship, alarms began to scream. Commander, we have contacts, the sensor officer shouted. Multiple large vessels, bearing 270. They just appeared out of nowhere. High Commander Zyrith spun toward the display screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. The ships were enormous. Each one was at least 5 times larger than his own flagship. They were painted black, so dark they seemed to swallow the light around them. No markings. No identification. Just pure, terrifying darkness. What are those things? Zyrith demanded. Unknown, Commander. We have no records of vessels matching these specifications. Energy readings are impossible. Impossible how? The sensor officer's voice trembled as he answered. Each ship is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. Their weapon systems are unlike anything we've ever seen. Zyrith felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. Hail them, he ordered. Find out who they are. The communications officer tried to open a channel. There was no response. The black ship simply sat in space, silent and still. They're not answering, Commander. Then try again. Try every frequency. Before the officer could comply, the lead black ship moved. It turned slowly, deliberately, until its bow was pointing directly at the Valkyrie fleet. Then it fired. A single beam of focused gravitational energy shot across space. It struck the nearest Valkyrie cruiser, a ship called the Wrath of Korith. The cruiser did not explode. It collapsed. In less than 2 seconds, the entire ship was crushed into a ball of metal the size of a small vehicle. 300 crew members died instantly, compressed into nothing. The bridge of Zyrith's flagship went silent. What? What was that? Someone whispered. No one had time to answer. The rest of the Shadow Fleet opened fire. The battle was not a battle. It was a massacre. Valkyrie ships tried to return fire. Their weapons splashed harmlessly against human shields. They tried to run. Human ships tracked them down and destroyed them. They tried to surrender. The humans did not accept. Captain Scott Morrison stood on the bridge of the Silence of Terra and watched the destruction with cold eyes. Target the command vessels first. Take out their leadership. then work through the rest. His weapons officer nodded and executed the commands. Gravity beams tore through Valkyrie cruisers. Particle cannons sliced destroyers in half. Missiles with warheads that bent space itself detonated among clusters of enemy ships, crushing them into twisted wreckage. High Commander Zyrith watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had conquered a dozen worlds were being destroyed like toys. Captains he had known for decades were dying in seconds. The communications channels were filled with screams and static. All ships retreat, Zyrith ordered. Fall back. Get out of the system. But there was nowhere to go. The human ships had spread out, blocking all escape routes. Any Valkyrie vessel that tried to run was hunted down and destroyed. On the bridge of the Silence of Terra, Linda Ross looked at the tactical display. Enemy fleet at 40% strength and falling. They're trying to scatter. Don't let them, Scott said. Not one ship leaves this system. The destruction continued. Valkyrie escape pods launched from dying ships, and the humans destroyed those too. There would be no witnesses. No survivors to report what had happened here. High Commander Zyrith realized the truth. He was going to die. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the homeworld. Emergency priority. Yes. Yes. Commander. Zyrith looked into the camera and spoke what he knew would be his final words. This is High Commander Zyrith of the 3rd Conquest Fleet. We are under attack by human forces. Their ships are unlike anything we have encountered. Their weapons are beyond our ability to counter. The fleet is lost. He paused as another explosion shook his flagship. Do not send reinforcements. Do not attempt to avenge us. The humans are not what we believe them to be. They are monsters. Worse than monsters. They are. He never finished the sentence. A gravity beam struck the flagship and tore it apart. Zyrith and his crew were dead before they could scream. The message traveled across space toward the Valkyrie homeworld. It would arrive in 3 days. By then, the entire 3rd Conquest Fleet would be nothing but debris. The battle lasted 11 minutes. 300 Valkyrie warships, reduced to scattered metal. 50,000 warriors, dead in the cold vacuum of space. The most powerful military force in 4 star systems, completely annihilated. Captain Scott Morrison looked at the aftermath. Debris fields stretched across the system. Bodies floated among the wreckage. Not a single Valkyrie ship remained functional. Signal the transport ships, he said. Tell Commander Torres he can begin the ground assault. Down on Cathura Prime, the colonists heard the explosions in orbit. They did not know what was happening. The communications with the surface had been cut when the Valkyrie invaded. Governor Catherine Price looked up at the ceiling of the bunker as if she could see through the rock above. Something's happening up there. Major Kevin Wright checked his equipment. The Valkyrie bombardment has stopped. No more missiles for the last hour. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe they're preparing a final assault. Catherine shook her head. No, it's something else. I can feel it. She was right. Transport ships descended from the Shadow Fleet, carrying the soldiers of Prometheus Division. They dropped through the atmosphere like falling stars, their heat shields glowing red against the smoke-filled sky. The Valkyrie ground forces saw them coming. Commanders shouted orders. Soldiers took defensive positions. Anti-aircraft weapons opened fire. The transport ships ignored the enemy fire. Their armor was too thick. Their shields were too strong. They landed in the ruins of the colony and their doors opened. Commander Ryan Torres was the first to step out. He was 7 feet tall, covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light. His helmet hid his face. His weapons were built into his arms. He looked less like a soldier and more like something from a nightmare. The Valkyrie soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts and energy beams struck Ryan's armor. He did not slow down. He did not take cover. He simply walked forward, raising his arm and returning fire. His weapon was a focused particle beam that cut through Valkyrie armor like paper. 3 soldiers fell in the first second. 5 more in the next. Ryan moved through them like a machine, killing everything in his path. Behind him, thousands more Prometheus soldiers deployed across the battlefield. They spread out in perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly where to go and what to do. There was no shouting, no confusion. Just cold, efficient death. The Valkyrie ground commander, a veteran named General Corvus, watched from his command post. He had fought in 30 campaigns. He had never seen anything like this. What are those things? He demanded. They appear to be human soldiers, his aide replied. But they're too fast. Too strong. Our weapons aren't stopping them. Then use heavier weapons. Call in air support. Commander, our air support was destroyed in orbit. There's nothing left. General Corvus felt the same fear that Xyrith had felt in his final moments. The humans have been hiding this. All this time, they had been pretending to be weak. And now the truth was here, walking through his soldiers like they were children. Fall back, he ordered. Everyone fall back to the secondary positions. But there was no falling back from the monsters that humanity had created. The Prometheus soldiers were everywhere. They fought without fear, without hesitation, without mercy. They hunted Valkyrie soldiers through the tunnels and ruins. They tracked them with sensors that could see through walls. They killed them with weapons that never missed. The battle on the surface lasted 6 hours. When it was over, not a single Valkyrie soldier remained alive. Commander Ryan Torres stood in the center of what had been the main colony square. Bodies lay around him. Smoke rose from burning vehicles. The ground was stained with alien blood. He felt nothing. He was not designed to feel. He was designed to protect humanity, and he had done his job. Commander, a voice crackled in his helmet. All enemy forces eliminated. The colony is secure. Ryan looked up at the sky, where the debris of the Valkyrie fleet was burning up in the atmosphere like falling stars. Tell the colonists they can come out now, he said. Tell them they're safe. The battle was over, but for the galaxy, the nightmare was just beginning. The bunker doors opened, and the colonists of Kethera Prime saw daylight for the first time in 6 days. Governor Catherine Price was the first to step outside. She had prepared herself for the worst. She expected to see Valkyrie soldiers waiting to capture them. Instead, she saw something that stopped her cold. The colony was in ruins. Buildings had been destroyed. Farms had been burned. But the alien invaders were gone. In their place stood rows of massive human soldiers in black armor, standing as still as statues. What? What is this? Catherine whispered. Commander Ryan Torres walked toward her. He removed his helmet, revealing a face that was almost human, but not quite. His features were too perfect, too symmetrical. His eyes were gray and empty, like windows into nothing. Governor Price, Ryan said. I am Commander Ryan Torres of the Prometheus Division. You are safe now. Catherine looked at the soldiers around her. They were terrifying. They were clearly dangerous. But they had saved her people. The Valkyrie fleet? She asked. Destroyed. Every ship. Every soldier. How is that possible? There were 300 of them. Ryan did not answer the question directly. Transport ships are standing by to evacuate your people to a safer colony. Earth Command recommends you leave within the next 12 hours. Catherine turned to look at her people emerging from the bunkers. Children were crying with relief. Parents were hugging each other. Old Mrs. Harper was on her knees, thanking God for their survival. Who are you? Catherine asked, turning back to Ryan. I've never seen soldiers like you. I didn't know we had weapons like the ones I saw in orbit. It is better if you don't ask too many questions, Governor. Some things are classified for good reason. Catherine wanted to argue. She wanted answers. But she looked into Ryan's empty eyes and decided that some truths were better left unknown. The evacuation began within the hour. Colonists gathered what belongings they could salvage and boarded the transport ships. Medical teams from the Shadow Fleet treated the wounded. Counselors helped the traumatized. Young Daniel Park, the engineer who had sent the distress signal, stopped beside Commander Ryan as he was boarding a transport. "Thank you," Daniel said. "If you hadn't come, we would all be dead." Ryan looked at him with those empty gray eyes. "You sent the message that saved your people. The thanks should go to you. Will we ever know what really happened here? Will anyone know? Some will know. Most will not. That is how it must be." Daniel nodded slowly. He understood. There were some secrets that protected everyone by staying hidden. The transports lifted off, carrying the survivors to safety. The Prometheus soldiers remained behind to clean up the battlefield and destroy any evidence of the advanced technology they had used. Within 3 days, there was no sign that a battle had ever taken place on Cathura Prime. Across the galaxy, word spread. The Valkyrie Dominion received High Commander Xyrath's final message. The leaders watched in horror as their greatest commander described the destruction of his fleet. They heard the terror in his voice. They saw the feed cut off as his ship was torn apart. "Do not engage the humans," Xyrath had said. "They are monsters." The Valkyrie High Council met in emergency session. Some called for revenge. They wanted to send more fleets to punish the humans for what they had done. Elder Valkrith, the oldest and wisest of the council, spoke against this. "You did not listen to the warning," he said. "You sent 300 ships to attack a defenseless colony, and the humans destroyed them in 11 minutes. 11 minutes. Do you understand what that means?" "It means we underestimated them," a younger counselor argued. "We will not make that mistake again." "You still do not understand." Valkrith's voice was heavy with age and experience. "We did not underestimate them. They deceived us. For decades, they pretended to be weak. They let us believe they were no threat. And when we attacked their people, they revealed what they truly are." He stood and walked to the viewing window, looking out at the stars. "The humans were waiting," Valkrith continued. "They were waiting for someone to give them a reason to show their true power. We gave them that reason. We were the fools who poked the sleeping monster. Then what do?" Another counselor asked. "We send ambassadors. We beg for peace. And we pray they accept." The Valkyrie ambassadors arrived at Earth 3 weeks later. They came not with threats, but with apologies. They offered compensation for the damage they had caused. They promised never to threaten human colonies again. Admiral Christopher Hayes received them in the Grand Hall of United Earth Command. He listened to their words of peace. He accepted their apologies. He agreed to their terms. But before they left, he gave them a message to carry back to their people. "Tell your leaders this," Christopher said. "Humanity came to the stars seeking peace and cooperation. We still want that. We do not wish to be conquerors. We do not wish to be feared. But we will protect our own." He paused and let the weight of his words sink in. "You killed 1,700 of our people on Cathura Prime before our forces arrived. 1,700 innocent men, women, and children. We have not forgotten them. We will never forget them." The Valkyrie ambassador bowed his head. "We understand, Admiral. It will not happen again. See that it doesn't. Because next time, we will not stop at defending our colony. Next time, we will come to your worlds. And what you saw at Cathura Prime will be just the beginning." The ambassadors left Earth in silence. They returned home and delivered the message exactly as Christopher had spoken it. The Volcari never threatened humanity again. In the months that followed, other species reconsidered their attitudes toward humans. The Galactic Council, which had ignored humanity's pleas for help, suddenly became very interested in peaceful relations. Trade agreements were proposed. Defensive alliances were offered. Ambassador Thelen of the Mori watched these developments with satisfaction. He had warned the Council that humans were not what they appeared to be. Now everyone could see the truth. He requested a private meeting with Admiral Hayes. "You knew," Christopher said when they were alone. "You tried to warn them." Thelen nodded his ancient head. "The Mori have watched your species for a long time, Admiral. We know what you are capable of. The darkness in your history. The weapons you have built. The wars you have fought. And yet you're not afraid of us. Fear would be pointless. You are what you are. The galaxy will simply have to learn to live with that reality." Christopher smiled slightly. "We don't want to be monsters, Ambassador. We want to be good neighbors." "I believe you," Thelen replied. "But your neighbors would do well to remember that even good neighbors can be very dangerous when threatened." Far from Earth, in a hidden base on Titan, the soldiers of Prometheus Division returned to their cryogenic pods. Commander Ryan Torres was the last to enter suspended animation. Before the pod closed, Admiral Diana Vance came to see him. "You did well, Commander," she said. "We did what we were created to do. The Council wants to keep you awake. They say you might be needed again." Ryan shook his head. "We should sleep. We are weapons, Admiral. Weapons should be kept locked away until they are needed. That is how it has always been." Diana understood. The Prometheus soldiers were too dangerous to keep active during peacetime. Their very existence changed the balance of power. It was better to let them sleep and hope they would never be needed again. "Rest well, Commander," Diana said. "I hope you dream of better things." "We don't dream," Ryan replied. "We weren't made for dreaming." The pod closed. The cold embrace of cryogenic sleep took him. Around him, 10,000 soldiers fell into dreamless darkness. The monsters returned to their slumber, but they would always be there, waiting in the shadows, ready to wake if humanity ever needed them again. And across the galaxy, in the halls of 100 different species, a new saying began to spread. It was spoken in whispers, in warnings, in fearful reminders. Let the humans sleep. Let them have their peace. For if you wake the monsters of Earth, you will learn why the darkness fears them. And in the great silence of space, humanity continued its journey among the stars. Peaceful explorers, friendly neighbors, scientists and farmers and dreamers, but always ready, because the universe was not kind. And humanity had learned that lesson long ago. They had become the monsters that other monsters feared, and they would never be weak again. The end.